When it comes to the topic of fighting game franchises, there are none as important as Super Smash Bros.
Yo, we whipping in the stew. Oh my!
Nah.
No.
Put him in a body
Stop.
Smash Bros. Is a franchise that has spanned literal decades worth of entertainment for everybody around the world. It has gaming's biggest icons going toe-to-toe at your own disposal however you please. Growing up in Europe, I remember my first console was actually a Nintendo 64, and I would religiously play Smash 64 with my sister. And then when we moved to America, it ended up being Melee and Brawl. And throughout my years in middle school and high school, it ended up being Smash 4 and Smash Ultimate. Needless to say, this has been a major franchise in my life. And with the Switch 2 coming out and all these new games dropping for it, I figured with the unprecedented hype of Smash 6, even though nothing has been confirmed from Nintendo themselves about development for it yet, I figured we'd take a look at what they should do with the franchise going forward and what they should cut back on.
Are you tired of getting G-tabbed?
Get that ass banged, bitch.
To start, I want to look at the actual roster itself. I think Ultimate's roster is pretty solid, but I do have some gripes with character slots sort of being wasted. It's going to be a little controversial going through this because I know everybody on planet Earth has at least one character in this video that I'm gonna say shouldn't be in the game that you think should be. So I want to preface that these are going to be pretty controversial. The characters I would remove from this game would be Min Min, who I think is just very poorly designed. I don't think it's a fun character to play or play against, and generally they don't have exciting gameplay at all. I'm sorry if that's offensive. It's just the truth. It's not a fun character to watch. I would also get rid of Piranha Plant. I understand the jokes around Piranha Plant in this game. They're pretty funny, but no, I never go out of my way to play this character unless somebody in my stream requests it. Another character that I think is just kind of a waste of a slot. Same with Wii Fit. Wii Fit's character design is pretty unique, I would say, but just don't understand how Wii Fit has made it over so many other different gaming legends. And again, the whole point of Smash Bros. Is that it's supposed to be gaming's biggest icons, and Wii Fit is kind of a random. And this is where it's going to get, again, going to be pretty controversial, but I would say characters sort of like Duck Hunt. I understand Duck Hunt was iconic, but there's no new Duck Hunt games nowadays, and the idea should be to have characters in this game that are still relevant nowadays, or at least are made relevant through Smash Bros. And Duck Hunt is not one of them. And this one's going to be obvious, but I think a lot of characters in this game that have an Echo Fighter, Peach and Daisy, for example, should be just made into one character and should just be an alternate skin. There's literally no difference between the two. Same for the Belmonts. I don't think they should be two separate slots. They should just literally be one character and make them just alternate skins. For my next topic, I want to look into characters that should be added. Now, typically, Nintendo will prioritize their gaming franchises, which makes sense. It is a Nintendo product after all. But for this game to stand out, I kind of want them to go really crazy with some of the characters they add this time around. Specifically, I want them to kind of branch out even more than they did with Ultimate, where we start getting characters sort of akin to, for example, Scorpion from Mortal Kombat. I think Scorpion not being in this game to this day is one of the most baffling things that I can think of. Scorpion would fit this franchise perfectly. I think his moveset would be really sick. You could use his iconic spear not only as a grab, but a tether as well. I also think characters such as Kratos from God of War would be a very interesting pick with the two. Not only does he have beat 'em up games, it just also would be such a unique character to have in a game like Smash Bros. Ultimate. If we're doing characters from Nintendo, I would like to see Waluigi get added.
Assist trophies by
I think the fact that he hasn't is kind of absurd, and again, every new Smash game always has a Mario rep get added, so I think it's high time that Waluigi does finally make it into the roster. I also think Sonic needs more representation. I would like to see Tails, Shadow, and or Eggman get added as characters. I think those three would have very, very interesting movesets.
The music washed away all the hate, and society started.
If you can't play in this lag, you're just not a streamer, and you're not a pro. So,
we're gonna move on to the online portion. Online in Smash Bros. Ultimate is one of the most dog shit online services I've ever seen for any game ever. I'm not even sugarcoating. Why Nintendo decided to cheap out and make the connection peer-to-peer instead of having a dedicated server blows my fucking mind, dude. In case you don't know, the way Smash Brothers Online works, it is called peer-to-peer connection. If you're wondering what peer-to-peer is, it's essentially a model where you and your opponent, or the peers in this instance, rather than having a dedicated server that you both connect to, players connect directly to each other to play without relying on a central server. Now, why is this an issue? Well, a lot of people who own Nintendo consoles don't use Ethernet cables, meaning if their Wi-Fi is trash, which 90% of the time it is, it means that a majority of your matches are just going to be absolutely filled with lag and you won't be able to play to the best of your ability.
Did you so light? Right? Up here, please. Please, come on. Up here.
Now granted, a lot of pro players do use online as a means to improve at the game. A lot of them install mods to reduce the input delay, which was my next point. Because of how bad peer-to-peer connection is in general, online is a completely different game because of input delay. Tier lists for online are vastly different than offline because typically in offline, Smash Ultimate's input delay is non-existent. You feel the inputs that you are obviously inputting right away. When you get to online, input delay can take up to 1 to 2 seconds, so you could be pressing something and your input won't register for a whole second, which again, I need to preface, that literally turns online into a completely different game as opposed to its offline counterpart. The other thing about online, there's 2 basic game modes in order to play online. You can either do Elite Smash or Battle Arenas. These modes both are trash. I'll start with Elite Smash. The premise behind Elite Smash is that when you first boot up Smash Ultimate and you unlocked all the characters, or you haven't unlocked all the characters, when you go into Elite Smash, you start out at a low GSP and you have to work your way up with each character to a high enough GSP to be able to make Elite Smash for that character. The problem is, GSP doesn't mean anything. There is no benefit to making it into Elite Smash besides your character just being highlighted on the roster screen. What the fuck is the point of getting into Elite Smash besides just giving yourself an imaginary badge that says that you played online long enough to get into Elite Smash? There isn't. I have more than half of the roster in Elite Smash. I don't feel proud of it at all. Anybody that brings up Elite Smash in my streams nowadays who complains about struggling with GSP, I just tell them like, dude, it's a made up fucking concept. There's nothing to be proud about. Normally with games that have a ranked system, for example, Overwatch, Marvel Rivals, anything like that, if you rank high enough, if you're in Diamond, Plat, Grandmaster, you fucking name it, you usually get rewarded for this shit. There is no, I need to just explain this again, there is no reward for being in Elite Smash with any character in this game. You can have the entire roster in Elite Smash, and you get nothing. You literally get the Mbappe special.
I stopped to learn how to cook. What's the Mbappe special? For example, Mbappe.
While we're on the topic of Elite Smash, I also want to bring up doubles because this is going to segue into what I want them to fix for Smash 6. In Smash Bros. Ultimate, when you go into Elite Smash, you can pick a dedicated rule set. For some odd reason, any game you join, when it comes to Elite Smash, trying to adjust your rule set to play to your preferred rules doesn't do shit. It'll maybe work 1 out of 7 times that you get queued up against somebody. You can put on 7 minutes, 3 stocks, Battlefield, and you'll queue for a match. You'll immediately get queued up against somebody who's on no plats, 2 stocks, 2 minutes. What the fuck? Genuinely, what the fuck? The best fix for this, Nintendo needs to create a game mode for online where they whittle down the map size to actual competitive viable maps and allow for map striking as if you were at an actual offline tournament. If you want to play online on a more casual level, have a casual mode. Don't make it so that you can go into Elite Smash and turn on non-casual options. How hard is it to have a casual versus ranked mode? In 2018, how did they fuck that up that badly? They literally had a casual versus non-casual game mode in Smash 4, and then they just got rid of it. Who the fuck is in charge of this shit? Doubles also needs to be improved. Doubles is so fun. I love playing doubles. Smash Ultimate doubles is dog shit. You can't toggle between friendly fire. Think about that. You cannot toggle friendly fire on and off. In a game mode where there's 4 people on stage and you're both on teams, friendly fire is always off. Meaning you could be playing characters such as, in my instance, I play Mario, my buddy Joe plays Ike. We're gonna just approach you. We're just playing for fun, and we're getting matched up against two fucking characters that are just spamming projectiles. And they're allowed to do so because they won't hit each other. How did they not think that people were gonna do that shit in online? It makes online such a miserable time to play through, especially if you just want to kick back and play doubles. Just get matched up against two Nesses, just spamming straight bullshit. Can't do anything, especially if they're lagging. Good fucking luck getting in on them. It's so goddamn dumb, and it needs to be fixed. I mentioned this with Elite Smash, but I also think this just needs to be a general game mode. When playing offline, we need a proper competitive tab to be added. It should allow the user to create custom map lists so that only viable stages can be picked, and also implement a striking system into the game. So if, for example, at a tournament, you'll play at an offline tournament, and the way it starts out is you can both agree to start on a set map. If I win that first match, I get to ban 3 maps, and the loser picks from that set list the remaining maps that haven't been banned. Every other fighting game nowadays has that implemented already into the game, except for Smash Bros. Like how? Fucking how? Like genuinely how? I think for the most part, besides that, I think offline is pretty solid. Strikedown's a fun game mode. I don't really have any other gripes. I think just add a couple more items, add more maps. I really like that they added every map from the prior games. I think that needs to stay as a feature. Just having every single map and expanding upon that, I think is awesome. Story mode. Where do I even start with story mode? World of Light was so fucking boring. I hate that Sakurai decided to make World of Light the way he did because he was afraid that people would upload the cutscenes to YouTube. I love Sakurai, but what the fuck does that even mean, Kobe Bryant? No shit, people are gonna upload the cutscenes to YouTube. Just fucking make them. They're cool as fuck. That's why people upload them. I digress. If they are to implement a story mode into Smash 6, I think it should take the best features from Subspace and Adventure Mode from Melee. What do I mean by that? I think Subspace was awesome. I think the idea of traversing through levels and battling enemies as you traverse those levels is really cool. My only complaint with Subspace is that a lot of the levels are pretty fucking boring to look at. Now here's where I would grab inspiration from Adventure Mode from Melee. Smash 6's story mode could have the traversal of Subspace, but instead of it being random areas, have them be actual locations from the characters that are in Smash Bros. Have characters like Sonic and fucking Kazuya traveling through the Mushroom Kingdom. Have Mario and Isabelle go through Metal Gear Solid's universe. That shit would be so cool. I'm surprised they didn't do that when Subspace was being created. Maybe there's licensing issues. Figure that shit out. I want to see Mario and Isabelle go through a Metal Gear Solid level. That shit would be hilarious. Now, when it comes to the actual mechanics of the game itself, I think Ultimate is as close to perfection as we've gotten. I think they've completely nailed down the style of gameplay that they were going for. My biggest gripe with Smash Ultimate is the parrying system. I think for Smash 6, what I would do, and what I hope they do, is implement a system that I've called conditional parrying. There are characters in Smash Ultimate, for example, Pyramithra, who kind of nullify parrying as a whole. They are very fast, their moves come out very quickly, and they have a lot of multi-hit moves. Now here's where conditional parrying would come into play. If you are up against somebody and they hit you with a move that is a single hit move and you parry it, you get 1 frame of advantage, just like you do in Smash Ultimate. However, if the game registers that the move you are parrying is a multi-hit move, rather than being given a frame to try and punish, what will happen instead is sort of a pushback mechanic where you parry, and then you have an animation where a gust of wind separates you and your opponent, therefore creating enough distance for you to back off and reset in neutral. I think that would make parrying so much more useful than it is, and it would actually incentivize you to want to do it more, even if there's that risk that your opponent's going to do a multi-hit move on you. Granted, will it fix all of the issues of parrying? No, but I think it will mitigate the most annoying aspects, which come from characters that are a lot more multi-hit based. I also think dodge spamming is a bit of a problem still. I know they nerfed the level of spamming that you're allowed to do to where you're a lot more vulnerable the more you spam. I still run into people who spam dodges, spam rolls, and to me, it doesn't really feel like it's too punishable still. What I would introduce is a feature where you keep the fatigue the same, but if the game registers that you're really spamming spot dodges, rolls, etc., have it start shrinking your shield over time. For example, if I'm just spamming just spot dodges and shit, and I haven't used my shield once, the next time I use my shield after the game registers that I've been spamming it, My shield will start out a lot smaller than it was, and it'll have to regain its size. If I'm just spamming rolls for like a minute straight, if I try to shield, that shit's gonna be so small that basically one hit breaks it. I think it'll be a great way to stop people from wanting to spam. And again, you might disagree with that, and if you do, fair enough. To me, that seems like a very fair trade-off if you're gonna spam rolls.
You say Leon, but then he's
Brother,
got
who this guy? You don't have questions, you just listen.
I asked my viewers online what they think should be in Smash Bros. 6, and here are some of the replies. Whoa Kiss says, remove items entirely. Agreed. I'm also blocking you. Joey Tokvik says, Ike side B into up B. One of my viewers says, give Crom a better recovery and make Marth's Tipper easier to hit, or make it more rewarding. I can agree on Crom, but making Marth's Tipper easier to hit would just be catastrophic. He'd play like melee Marth, and I don't want that in my Smash game. Shout out Polar, he says, make Captain Falcon's up air do the same amount of knockback every hit, but make it do the same amount of damage as Ganondorf's up smash. Also bring Urbosa into the game. Urbosa would be kind of sick in Smash Bros. I'm gonna ignore everything he said before that. Polpeak says, if they make a new Smash, I think they need to put a new twist on the game. Adding 5 extra characters isn't gonna cut it. They should also improve already existing features like training mode, custom stages, classic mode, smashdown, and much more. Especially the online system. With the amount of characters, it will definitely depend on how much they change and how much they add to the game. They need to make a game that can rival Ultimate in some way. I didn't even think about that. Training mode does need to get improved a bit. They did a pretty decent job in Ultimate, but I don't even know what they would do. I do agree it does need to be improved. I just can't think of how off the top of my head. I do agree heavily though. Training mode does need to be improved upon even further. They need to just take inspiration from like Street Fighter, Tekken, those types of games for how they run their training modes. DJ Boy 11 says, I feel that we need better single player content and we gotta have a larger roster. Even if a few characters are cut, I feel that the greatest appeal of Smash Bros. Is its massive recognizable roster that it has. Also more viable comp stages. Agreed. I do think they just need, again, to implement that game mode I was talking about where you can just selectively cater a map list to just include competitive viable stages and allow for striking as if you were at an offline tournament. My dumbass forgot to film an outro, but if you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe for more.
Bad spot to be.
Oh,
Two Frame City again!